This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Boring. 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 Boring.
You got it work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. That's exactly what you're doing. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Welcome to another edition of Lembit Opik Live here on Unprecedented TV. And first of all, a big thank you to you, the viewers. Following the Tommy Robinson interview, an exclusive for the world, I would say, on our new program, Free Speech Central, with Joe Marnie co-presenting it. We had over 30,000 views. Now, that's a record for a single show here on Unprecedented, and it's going up all the time. So I really appreciate those of you who took it up to 30,000 in the first 48 hours or so. Do please like. And if you haven't seen that video, you're most welcome to go and find it in the archive, Unprecedented TV on YouTube. It's uncut, just tidied up, but we didn't take any content out. So it's Tommy Robinson in his own words. I trust you to be smart enough to make your own judgment. And that's what the Free Speech Central program is all about. And a big thank you to Joe Marnie for organizing that guest. Also, if you're watching this on the original live version, a lot of very interesting programs coming up this week. As usual, we're going to have myself and Mark Oaten, former Liberal Democrat MP, as am I, with Lib and Let Die. We've got, I think we're going to have another episode of Claire Dyer with Dire Consequences this week. Tim Scott will be doing the rounds, and he did a really good job on his first show, which went out at the weekend, if you're watching this live. But once again, you'll find all of this in the archive. And coming up soon, we're hoping Warren Thornton's output will also be joining us. We now do put a warning on some of the programs that the views are strong, but also sometimes the language. But if you're not faint-hearted, I think you'll find very robust, very insightful content in all of these. I should also say that the views represented here on Unprecedented TV are fairly wide. Doesn't mean they're always mine. That's fine. I'm not here just to promote my opinions. I'm here to promote opinions. And as I've said many times before, we don't want to beat the mainstream media. We want to be the mainstream media. And last week, and your patronage of the shows is a huge step forward with that. Thank you. Keep the faith. And very soon we'll be expanding our advertising as well. And if you want to advertise your services or your business, please do let me know. We'd love to talk with you, and we will make bespoke adverts for you too. Enough of that. Today, we're going to talk about the Zelensky value to the Putin and Trump meeting, which is coming up in Alaska. Maybe it's already happened by the time you watch this, so you can actually compare what we say in this program with what actually happened. My contention is that Zelensky doesn't matter, but Putin and Trump do. Zelensky, I've for a long time thought, is a puppet of the West. Doesn't have any significant role, but more than anything could do damage if he attends. So also the bleating Europeans. Whatever happened to the coalition of the willing? My opinion is the only significant dialogue that needs to take place to secure a peace in Ukraine does come between the Premier of America and the Premier of Russia. That's Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, two people who have a relationship of old and are rekindling that and meeting for the first time at this seminal Alaskan summit. But what can we expect from it? And once again, we're putting our necks on the line now because you can compare the content of this program with what transpires. I'm very pleased to join, to introduce you again to our old friend, Warren Thornton, who joins me now. Warren, good to see you. Thanks very much for joining us. How are you doing?
Hi there. Yeah, absolutely fine. How are you?
Oh, yeah, better than average. Very excited by this development. And as said in the introduction, for those who watch this program from the archive after that summit, they can compare how accurate we are. So be warned, Warren, we're committing ourselves to some fairly live predictions here. may be right or wrong. And I know I've been wrong a few times already. I wrongly predicted that Trump would actually stop the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. I realize now that was preposterously optimistic, as you told me at the time. So you've got good credit on this one, and I haven't. But let's start once again, for those who haven't heard you before. Tell us your credentials and tell us that dangerous job you used to do.
I was a British military sniper for 6 years, and then after protected people in war-torn countries for a further 8 years, including places obviously like Panama and also Sierra Leone, looking after aid workers. So that gave us every chance to bump into military attachés, embassy staff, aid workers, journalists, you name it. We tended to get the contacts. And of course, a few years back, they started contacting me and saying, you won't believe what's going on. And of course, they can't say anything because they'll either be fired or they'll end up in a ditch. So that's how I got into what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I'm glad I never had to do your job. I can tell you, I probably wouldn't be very good at it. I'm not a bad shot, but I don't think I'd like to shoot at people. When I worked on a farm, I'd shoot at rabbits, but deliberately miss them. I wouldn't be much use to the army. Probably about as useful as the amateurs of the Ukrainian front line. Which brings us to the point today. There's this big story about this meeting between Putin and Trump coming up. And my understanding is that this has now been arranged fairly hastily, but it's happening. Let's just have a look at this.
As President Trump prepares to meet with Russia's leader, Vladimir Putin, the historic summit in Alaska this coming Friday is happening without Ukraine at the table. ABC's Johnny Fernandez has more.
Vice President J.D. Vance meeting with European allies in the UK this weekend as President Trump prepares to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. A U.S. official tells ABC News the talks produced significant progress toward President Trump's goal of bringing an end to the war in Ukraine. Ukrainian President Zelensky, who will not be at the summit, held a flurry of calls with European leaders on Saturday. Zelensky warning everyone can clearly see Putin's tactics. He fears sanctions and is doing everything to bail on them. He wants to gain territorial spoils for the second time already. President Trump missing his own deadline to impose sanctions on Russia, instead agreeing to meet with Putin in Alaska on Friday, marking the Russian president's first meeting with the major Western leader since Russia invaded Ukraine more than 3 years ago.
Now, that's the interesting thing. The central point here is, as far as I can tell, that Zelensky is excluded and Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are happy to meet regardless. And so Zelensky goes bleating to the Europeans about it too. What's your take on the dynamics here, Warren? Should Zelensky be invited?
Oh, absolutely not. Everywhere he turns up, it's a clown show. If you remember the last time, or one of the very first peace meeting between Russia and Ukraine, where they sat across the table, Zelensky decided he was going to travel to that very country and sat in the hotel room in the hope that he would get called in. And of course, nobody wanted him there. Nobody needs him there. Let's be absolutely clear here. Zelensky's talking rubbish. The sanctions haven't worked, and neither has the threat by America to put the sanctions on the secondary sanctions on India and China. They both said they're going to carry on buying Russian oil. And at the end of the day, if they did so, it would be catastrophic, not only for Europe, but for America as well.
So essentially, you don't think that there's any reason whatever for Zelensky to make that trip to Alaska, but you think he might try?
Oh, God, yes. Simply because he's one of those people who feels that he has to be relevant. This is a non-player on the world stage. Zelensky will do whatever America tell him to do at the end of the day. Let's not forget the oligarch who installed him, Kolomoisky. Of course, he arrested him and everything else. Zelensky is running fast out of friends, apart from in Europe. But Europe absolutely want to be part of this peace deal. They've got nothing to do with it. They'll want to scupper it because literally their economy's in the toilet and they want to keep fighting.
Just before we go further, you said that Zelensky was installed by an oligarch. What do you mean?
So Kolomoisky, who was this oligarch, this millionaire, this billionaire, I should say, was the person who put forward Zelensky as this person, should we say, that's going to run Ukraine He's going to make peace with Russia. He ran on a platform of making peace with Russia. And of course, the moment there was a possible peace deal, very, very simply, as he was about to sign that peace deal, Boris Johnson, phoned by Joe Biden, basically told Zelensky, don't worry, we'll back you, fight the Russians. That's not turned out too well.
Right. There's a whole story behind that, which we won't go into now. Fascinating. Note to self, biography of Zelensky at some point with you, Warren Thornton. Maybe it could be a slightly longer piece, actually, and one we might syndicate on your outlet as well as ours. Now, let's look at this meeting between Putin and Trump. What can we expect from it?
Well, no, I'm sad to say, Lembit, and I know you're probably very much more hopeful than I. But I don't think you're going to see very much at all. What's going to happen is there's been a lot of talk about they're going to swap territories. They're not going to swap territories. Putin has already laid out. J.D. Vance and Rubio have come out and said, now we understand what the Russians want. Well, the Russians have told you exactly what they wanted for the last 2 years. And of course, nobody's been listening to them. Now they've got to listen because Ukraine are collapsing in many areas of the Donbass. And of course, once they get past that area, they'll have a free run, or not so much a free run, but a much easier run at taking even more territory. And really, America have got nowhere to go from this, or Europe, unless they put boots on the ground. They're not going to do that.
Yeah, I know. This is the thing. You don't think they're going to put anybody... You don't think that they're going to put anyone in there?
No, absolutely not. Let me put it this way, Lembit. Russia are literally outpacing everybody in Europe and America. They can build faster. They do have better weapons. They have more men. And of course, they've been fighting quite a while. They've been rotating troops in and out. Ukraine's losses are catastrophic now. And of course, what we've got, Lembit, is if we then go in there, we're fighting on terrain we don't know. We don't know the language. We've never fought in a drone war, and we haven't fought in trenches since 1945. So the chances of us doing very well. Let's not forget, 120,000 Ukrainians died in Bakhmut, 15,000 Russians. The Russians have learned since then, so the Ukrainian dead are going up. 120,000 is more than the British and the German army combined.
That's a pretty bad result. And we've noted before, and just for viewers who join us for the first time, if you go back through the archive, you'll find a fairly detailed analysis of the figures with Warren in the past, or they can find them at warrenthornton.com as well, because Warren is often covering this subject. Just before we move on to the European dimension, neither you nor I think that Volodymyr Zelensky has any meaningful role in any meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. We both agree on that. But yes, where we seem to disagree is level of optimism. It seems to me that Trump wants to save money, and he actually wants to save lives. I genuinely believe it whenever he says he's just not happy with the level of death that's going on there. Unlike pretty much anyone in Europe, including Starmer, they don't seem to talk about the death. They just talk about stopping Russia. And I find that quite distasteful, really, because it's not about beating Russia. It's about finding peace. But on this one, my prediction is that they will find something more tangible than you say. After all, there are only three things that need to be completed. The denazification of Ukraine, which I'm going to ask you to explain in a minute. No membership of NATO for Ukraine. And, well, those are the two really big ones, I think. And then the demilitarization of Ukraine, which I'm not sure how important that really is if the first two are achieved. But those are the three main things, aren't they, Warren?
They are, yeah, absolutely. The demilitarization is important so that they can't attack them again. Putin wants them to have a much smaller, should we say, force. Of course, this all started because literally Ukraine were going to join NATO, then they were going to put the weapons in there. That would have given them a 3-minute flight time to Moscow with these missiles. Russia were never going to allow that. And the fact that various people thought it was okay to discuss Ukraine going into NATO was a very, very serious error by the West and by America. Now, the problem that we have, the main problem, which nobody is talking about, is the denazification of Ukraine. And when we talk about that, we're talking about right sector or the Azov battalion. You even go and look at their badges and everything else. Sersky himself has the crossed grenades of the Derwanger battalion on his arm. Now, he's literally Zelensky's right-hand man, and they're joined at the hip. There is a neo-Nazi problem in Ukraine. We have been funding them left, right, and centre. And the problem is, until America actually put their hands up and go, look, we were the ones who funded these right at the start with Victoria Nuland, when we were literally overthrowing the democratically elected government of Ukraine. They put these people in. They started killing ethnic Russians in the eastern Donbass for about 7 or 8 years. And finally, Russia said, we've had enough. And in they went. And ever since then, it's gone fairly badly, shall we say, for these people. But they've got to have this discussion sooner or later, because this is one of the core points, the 3 core points, that Vladimir Putin is insisting upon.
Now, the thing about this is, let's just look at those 3. Donald Trump's already said that he doesn't want Ukraine and NATO. So that's a done deal between those 2 at least. And he has the power of veto. Let's face it, most of NATO is paid for by the United States, a very large proportion of it. So if he says no, and Viktor Orban and others simply say no, they can politically obstruct any prospect of Ukraine joining NATO. So that one can be banked. In terms of the demilitarization, I think that might have some wriggle room in it. I don't know. But this denazification, how could Donald Trump say, no, I disagree with that? He's going to say it's not, either he's going to say it's not happening, so he therefore does agree with it. He's saying if it was happening, I would say we should stop it. But or he's going to say, yeah, well, I agree that we have to denazify Ukraine. But what he's not going to say is, no, we have to Nazify Ukraine. The opposite is preposterous. So it seems to me the one that you think is the sticking point isn't a sticking point.
I think you'll find it is, because Sersky, who is and very much the whole parliament, not the parliament, sorry, the whole of the military that are in the top positions have all got this, shall we say, this lunacy, this Russophobia. And the other thing, of course, that Putin is worried about is they may turn to say no NATO in Ukraine. But of course, the coalition of the clueless is getting a whole bunch of people ready together from UK, Germany, and everything else once a ceasefire is in place to put into Ukraine. So, and of course, by de facto, that is NATO in Ukraine. So Putin is turning around and saying no ceasefire until we get written agreement that no NATO troops from any NATO country whatsoever will be in Ukraine.
I have to say, I agree with that. I do not want to see the militarization of Ukraine. I don't think that Zelensky is competent. I've said that many times. But more than that, I don't see the point, because unlike these fools, in my view, people like Mark Rutte from NATO and so on, I don't think that Russia wants to invade and conquer Europe. There's no reason. Russia's doing really well on its own economically. Why would it occupy Europe? It's Cold War nonsense. It's what's called McCarthyism. A chap called McCarthy in America is obsessed with the Russians wanting to invade and conquer America and everything else. It seems to me there is no real actual threat to Europe from Russia, apart from the threat that we've created ourselves by breaking promises, Warren.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Russophobia is sort of rampant, and you've only got to look at some of the governments. Anything that's remotely close to getting along with Russia, like Romania didn't want to have anything to do with them. You look at Belarus, they've tried to overthrow that. Georgia, they've started trying to overthrow that. Anybody who's remotely friendly or even okay with Russia is suddenly descended upon from a great height. Now, the problem that we have, of course, is that Russia don't want to take any more of it. I would just turn around to you, Lembit, and say, how would you feel if they were placing, say, missiles in the Orkneys or on Rockall or on the Isle of Man, surrounding you with those? How would America feel if, the Russians place missiles in, literally, let's face it, if they place them in New Mexico, if they place them on Hawaii, if they place them in Canada or Alaska?
Or Cuba. Or Cuba, yes. We know the answer. We nearly went into a new war because Khrushchev, the former premier, same job as Putin now, but 60 years ago, because Khrushchev wanted to put nuclear weapons off the coast of America. And we know the answer. They said, no, not on our backyard. and we'll fight you for
Exactly.
it.
Exactly. And they had to trade away the missiles in Turkey that were pointing at Russia to do that. Now, this is exactly the same thing. But here's the worst thing about it. This is exactly the same thing. This is a squabble between Russia and America. Neither wants to give way. Russia are winning this quite comfortably. And the really, really sad fact is perfectly good Ukrainians are dying for American and NATO rhetoric. They're not going to put boots on the ground, because if those bodies start turning up, and they will in great numbers, because the Russians will fight to the death on this, they will in great numbers, then of course that brings down governments. And let's face it, being friends with Zelensky has finished many a European politician's career. And America don't mind too much if Europe get damaged, because Europe then don't become this EU superpower that von der Leyen and all her cronies and Starmer and Macron all want to become.
Yeah, that's the thing. And you mentioned, let's talk about that a bit. If we can cue up the Starmer speech, let me know when it's ready. The Coalition of the Willing, I thought we maybe talk about that briefly. Now, if you remember, this was Keir Starmer's vainglorious attempt to put himself and Europe at the center of the war effort that was going to defeat Russia. 3 problems with that. First of all, Keir Starmer's not really a proper leader. Number 2, Europeans have got 4th division politicians. And number 3, no one's going to beat Russia. No one's ever beaten Russia. No one has ever beaten Russia in war that I can think of. So let's just remind ourselves of the preposterous, in my view, claims and commitments made by, we've got this, we've got from Keir Starmer, made by Keir Starmer on the floor of the House of Commons. If we can play that, please.
Develop a coalition of the willing, ready to defend a deal in Ukraine and guarantee the peace. Mr. Speaker, after all, the Ukrainian position is completely understandable. For them, the war did not begin 3 years ago. That was merely the latest and most brutal escalation. They have signed agreements with Putin before. They've experienced the nature of his diplomacy and the calibre of his word. We cannot accept a weak deal like Mint again. No, we must proceed with strength. And that does now require urgently a coalition of the willing.
Well, whatever happened to that, Warren? Where is it?
It was a non-starter from the word go. I mean, they started getting people in from Australia and Peru to back them up, because half the countries in the EU didn't want to know. And let's be honest here, Starmer's lying through his teeth. Both the Minsk agreements were broken by the West. And in fact, Angela Merkel and Francois Mitterrand actually came out and said that one of the agreements, they never had any compunction to stick to it whatsoever. It was only made so they could give time to arm Ukraine. So Keir Starmer at the dispatch box there is lying through his teeth. And when he talks about a just and lasting peace, this guy is absolutely clueless, as is Merz, as is Macron. They are bit part players here. There are 3 superpowers in the world. There's Russia, there's China, and there's America. There may be a 4th eventually joined with India because of the economic power that they will have. But these, the golden days are behind them, and I'm afraid de Gaulle and, should we say, the mustachioed gentleman in Germany, and also Churchill, these people are not. Of course, they talk a good game. When it comes to actually putting boots on the ground, they're not going to do that. They know they will get massacred. They'll only do it if they've got America's backing.
Yeah, and therefore, it seems to me that the coalition of the willing has turned into exactly what I thought it would be. Absolutely big zero. Nothing. And that's partly because of the weakness of the leaders themselves. Keir Starmer has not exactly done a great job in the UK. What chance has he got on the international stage? And as I've predicted on your show, actually, on warrenthornton.com, as well as here on Unprecedented, it seems to me exactly what I predicted has played out and what you predicted has played out. They've walked away one by one. They talked the talk, shed tears over Ukraine, had the photo opportunities with Zelensky, and now it's all quietly forgotten. And I don't think that there's any prospect of the coalition of the willing being resuscitated. Do you?
No, I mean, they all got strangled when they went to see Trump. If you go and see, very simply, you look at von der Leyen, who made a terrible deal when it came to the EU buying energy, which is basically going to come from Russia. And when Starmer went, he sat there like a good little boy. When Macron went, he sat there like a good little boy. When Merz went, he sat there like a good little boy. That tells you where you are on the international stage. America can just pull out of NATO if literally Europe don't do exactly what they want. So literally Trump has them by the short and curlies. They will do exactly what they are told. And at the end of the day, they are bit part players. They are, if you like, the lackeys or the support. It's very much, how can I put this? It's yes, sir, no, sir, three banks full, sir, as far as Europe is concerned.
Now, continuing on that theme, Europe's been making some heady claims, as has Zelensky, that they're not going to surrender any land. No land's going to be given up. Let's have a look at this.
Of course, we will not reward Russia for what it has perpetrated. The Ukrainian people deserve peace. But all partners must understand what a dignified peace is. Ukraine is ready for real decisions that can bring peace. Any decisions that are against us, any decisions that are without Ukraine, are at the same time decisions against peace. They will not achieve anything. These are stillborn decisions. They are unworkable decisions, and we all need real and genuine peace.
I don't really feel that there's anything credible in what Zelensky was saying there, do you?
No, absolutely not. He had peace in his hands in 2022. He had the peace deal in his hands. Johnson went across, talked him out of it. And of course, the guy who was responsible for negotiating that peace deal ended up falling out of a window, oddly. The other thing that is
Who was that? Who was that?
The gentleman who, I'm trying to think of his name, but the guy who was in charge of the Ukrainian delegation fell out of a window in Turkey and died shortly after he literally went on holiday to that country. Now, that tells you something. That, yes, very careless. Don't go near any windows if you're negotiating peace deals. That's obviously the thing. Now, the thing that really gets you here with this, Lembit, is when they turned around and said, yes, this peace deal is on the table. They denied it left, right, and centre until Putin waved the piece of paper to say, look, here it is. Here's the draft deal, the memo that we had. It's exactly the same when Stoltenberg, who literally gave up his place as the head of NATO to let Rutte then take over. Stoltenberg actually turned around and said there was no deal that said that literally we would not extend further east. And then, of course, we were able to show the document that was signed by Shevardnadze, Baker and Gorbachev back in 1991 that said that America would not and NATO would not move 1 inch further east.
I think it was 1990, just pedantic.
1990, sorry. Yeah. That was the promise.
Just once again, for those who don't nerdily follow politics the way you and I do, James Baker was the representative of the United States administration. He was authorized by the president of the United States to make that promise, not 1 inch to the east. I've seen the document. You've shown it to me.
Yes, yeah. And of course, since then, NATO has extended, I think it's something like 17, 18 countries to the east, most of them surrounding Russia. How would America, how would we react if that was done to us?
Yeah, if somehow, for example, Russia persuaded the Scottish National Party to enter an alliance and allow Russian boots on the ground, north of the border, and Wales too, maybe, if the Welsh nationalists got in, it sounds fanciful. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing to Russia.
Exactly.
Literally, it's not like even a stretch of land, like water, like the English Channel. It's actually a physical border.
It's
one
not
inch
just
to
there,
the east,
though, is
Russia,
it?
1 inch to the west, NATO.
it is one of those things where you look at it and you go, it is absolutely terrible, because it's happening also in China with Taiwan. You're getting surrounded. You look at the military bases that America has there. And of course, they're looking to do exactly the same thing and surround China with Philippines, Australia, Japan, and everything else. And of course, that's all going to be over Taiwan in 2027. So until we stop these warmongers in the USA taking control of everything, we're in real trouble, I'm afraid. As world peace is a long way away.
Seems to almost always have been away. We seem to have been continuously at war somewhere in the world. So let's make some bold predictions here on the live show and see if we're right or wrong. And next Monday or next time after the summit, maybe we can compare notes. What do you think will be the outcome, Warren? I'll let you go first, of the Trump-Putin meeting.
They will ask for a freeze in the conflict. They will agree to give up some land. Putin and the rest of Europe will go mildly Zelensky and the rest of Europe will go mildly potty. Zelensky will not agree to it. Trump will bully Zelensky. Very simply, Putin will not agree to a freeze in the conflict whatsoever until Zelensky's removed, until, of course, there is an absolute cast iron written agreement, no NATO in Ukraine of any troops whatsoever, and the demilitarization is agreed. Trump will turn around, will come away from the meeting saying, we've had a very positive meeting, we're going to talk again. For now, we've made good progress, and we won't have made it.
I agree with most of that, actually. I think that Trump will agree, no NATO for Ukraine. He said it before. I think he'll be all right with this denazification claim. He'll probably say the Ukraine isn't Nazified, but he agrees that no nation should be. He'll say something like that. With the demilitarization, I think there is some wriggle room there. But I certainly, personally, if I was Putin, would not want any Western troops there for the reason you said before. That's de facto the NATOization of Ukraine. And I think that Trump would understand that too. So I tend to think that although there may be an elegant solution to this, Trump will agree with the spirit of that, though they might mess around with how that looks.
Yeah, and of course you've got the war hawks, the neocons. You've only got to go and look. When Trump announced that he was going to give extra aid to Ukraine, have a look at the CIA director, John Radcliffe's face. He's almost beside himself with happiness. There are many people like that. His White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, is a massive Russia-phobe and also dislikes China and Iran. And of course, he is surrounded by people like Marco Rubio, who is a very, very dark character indeed. People don't realize quite how bad he is, who are all briefing against Trump from the State Department. It's got Lindsey Graham, who's another absolute lunatic of a warmonger. And Putin is in a position of strength. He is winning. You do not give concessions when you are winning. You tell the losing side what they are going to have. And the losing side either accepts it or there's only two things. Wars only end one of two ways, negotiation or obliteration. If they don't, in this case, capitulate, they're going to get obliterated.
What does obliteration actually look like?
I tell you what I honestly think, and I've been constant with this throughout the time of the SMO since 2022. I think Russia
SMO standing for Special Military Operation, which is what Putin calls the conflict, or the Second World War. They also call it the Second World War.
They did. So I think he will take the 9 Russian-speaking oblasts. So there are the Eastern oblasts are very much Russia. They're very much tied to Russia, very much like Russia. In fact, they all voted to stay part of Russia than part of Ukraine. So I think he'll take the 7 Eastern oblasts plus Crimea, and of course he'll take Odessa because they want to be Russian. They're like 92% Russian, and of course he won't want them having the Ukrainians having a seaport. So I think if they don't agree to that, I would be surprised if Russia agreed to just the 4 oblasts. So at the time, they could have got away with that, but now we're well past that. Of course, they're not going to give up Kherson. They're not going to give up Zaporozhye. They'll want Mykolaiv so that Odessa is next. So those 9 oblasts, and then, of course, they won't want a Vietnam on their hands. So I don't think they'll go much further. What they'll do is make an exclusion zone, probably about 150 kilometers in front of those borders and say no weapons in there whatsoever. And from there, if they don't decide to get rid of Zelensky, they'll go, it's okay, we'll just get on with our lives, but don't put any weapons in there because there will be trouble.
Yeah, you think Zelensky's a goner then? You think that those
Yes.
who predict that his days are numbered are correct?
I think it's a very nuanced thing, this, because what you've got is, remember that as long as he's doing exactly what the Azov battalion or the neo-Nazi faction within the Zelensky government want, he will still keep his job because they will back him to the hill, and they will actually, pretty metaphorically stick two fingers up to America because they know that they're going to get European backing. However, the Americans would like Klitschko. If you go back and you listen to Victoria Nuland, when they first overthrew the democratically elected government of Ukraine, Victoria Nuland wanted Klitschko left out of it when she was talking to the Secretary of State at the time and the ambassador. There's a phone call between Victoria Nuland and the ambassador at the time to say that they were in play in Ukraine, which basically means they were going to overthrow the government. Zelensky is the one that Britain would like, because, of course, they've been grooming him for the last year and a half. And America would probably like Klitschko. So they're the two front runners. Zelensky would probably be the winner. But Zelensky's in a good position to keep his job as long as he keeps going along with the far-right lunatic faction that actually currently have their finger on the pulse and control of Ukraine.
Well, a lot of predictions there. Let's see what happens. And because we put everything in the archive, viewers can compare the accuracy of what we've said with what transpires. Warren, where can we get another dose of Warren Thornton for now? Because we are going to start broadcasting your output too. But where can we get it?
Thank you very much. Monday to Friday, of course, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. We are on a live show on X at warrenthornton.com and also over at Patreon of The Real Truth 502. And on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. till 9 p.m., we're joined by the wonderful Lembit Opik from Unprecedented TV.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take advantage of the fact Warren's with me. After the show, we're going to carry on with a little bit of chat. So don't go anywhere, Warren. But to viewers, we've got an ever-increasing offering of shows here. We're very, very flat out with our new shows. So watch out for Tim Scott, Uncancelled, the Claire Dire Consequences series, hoping to get Christine Joanna Hart on with Inside the Mind, and plenty more besides as well, together with Live and Let Die with me and Mark Oaten. So thanks very much indeed. And we're going to have another blockbuster with Joe Marnie, another big interview for Free Speech Central as well. All of that on Unprecedented TV, which you'll get on X, also on YouTube, and we'll be adding other social networks for that as well. If you've got ideas for us, then do please let us know. I'd love to hear from you as well, and love to know what you think of the content, because we do take your feedback very seriously, and it affects what we do here. Anyway, I'm Lembit Opik. Thanks very much for watching. This is Unprecedented TV. Have a good day, and if you like it, retweet it, and do say that you like it, and tell others as well. That's what we thrive on. Free speech, live and uncancelled, here on Unprecedented TV. Have a good day.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Boring. 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 Boring.
You got it work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. I'm not telling you. Because you're in no position to dictate that. That's exactly what you're doing. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages,